The very first professional conference I ever attended was in October 2015 at the EDUCAUSE annual conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. Having never attended a professional conference before, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know how to select what sessions to go to, much less figure out how to navigate the labyrinth that is the Indiana Convention Center. There were so many people, almost all of whom I didn't know and had never even met. The entire experience was pretty overwhelming. So my hotel was over a mile away from the conference, and I'm 99.9% sure that no one from the conference was staying at that hotel besides me. However, and have I mentioned I'd never been to a professional conference before? I didn't know that and helped myself to the incredible breakfast spread out for conference attendees for the small conference being hosted at that hotel. Whoops. Or how about when I decided to have my own Mary Tyler Moore moment, exploring the big city, walking back from the convention to my hotel, only to find myself lost in the middle of a field by a freeway I didn't even know existed, and having to call my brother who lives in Northern California to look at Google Maps and help guide me back to my hotel. My name is Tara Hughes, and I'm a conference enthusiast, and I want to share with you a bit about conferences. I like to think of it as a conference survival guide. However, I'm really focusing on one particular area. And no, it's not on how to avoid getting lost, where to get the best t-shirts, USB cables, or branded swag, or if you should avoid the vegetarian lobster bisque. I mainly want to focus on one obstacle that can get in your way of enjoying conferences and how to overcome that hurdle. Now, right out the gate, it should be obvious that this is not how I intended to give this presentation. I imagined I would be with you in Boston, meeting and greeting and exploring that iconic city. But life throws curveballs at us and we have to adjust. So you're now watching me on a screen similar to 90% of all your interactions these days. I know this isn't ideal, but I hope I can still communicate an important message that you can hold on to and use the next time you're at EDUCAUSE or any other conference in the future. It's easy to bash social media these days, especially in an election year. It feels like you can ascribe all the world's ills to that one technology. This isn't meant as an indictment. Think of it more just as an observation. Have you noticed on social media how much better everyone's lives are than yours? Maybe it's an Insta of your friend's last hiking adventure of Mount Kilimanjaro, a Facebook post from the perfect family, or someone's fitness, financial, or academic achievements. It can be overwhelming how much better their lives are. However, it is possible that they aren't presenting an entirely accurate representation of their life. For instance, no one posts about their most recent blow-up with their kids, the 2-day-long passive-aggressive exchange with their spouse, or eating a tub of ice cream and passing out on the couch while your pumpkin spice Yankee candle burns unsupervised. It's not that these things don't happen in these families, they just go undocumented. Punctuated moments of happiness and bliss posted on social media invite the viewer to fill in the missing gaps with assumptions that every day is just as exciting, just as perfect as the ones that are posted. The discontentment that results from these assumptions is commonly known as Fomo, or fear of missing out. When thinking about user community conferences like EDUCAUSE, we can draw a lot of similarities between presentations and social media posts. We make sensational headlines to draw in attendees, like "Embiggening your user base with cromulent cloud," or "How Del Boomy saved my baby." Obviously, I'm being facetious, but of course we want people to come to our presentations. So when we describe the project or technology topic, it'll be with the creative skew of a fisherman describing their greatest catch. In many situations, the accomplishments of our presenting colleagues are indeed impressive. They've achieved something worthy of notice and rightly will receive recognition for their work. As the attendee, however, we can easily find ourselves in the same mindset as those social media viewers looking on at the myriad of achievements accomplished by their peers. And instead of seeing them as a recipe book full of unique and interesting ideas, they're seen as benchmarks for which you or your university fall hopelessly short of. Fomo at the conference level, sucking the joy from the conference experience and limiting our ability to be inspired. Now, it's possible that isn't a problem for you, but let me ask you some questions first and see if any of these resonate with you. Have you ever listened to a presentation and thought, we could never do that at our campus, or my department just doesn't have it together like the other ones do, or we are so far behind? Or how about, must be nice to have those resources? If these sound familiar, you've at some point most likely left a session discouraged rather than inspired and enthused, which I'm sure wasn't the intent of the presenter. So why are we having this negative reaction? At its root, it's a faulty set of standards we're unknowingly applying and comparing ourselves, our departments, or our organization to that of the presenters. While stop comparing yourself to others is probably good advice, I think it may be a bit too broad to really provide value. But I think that is the crux of what our problem is. So let me try to provide a framework of thought that will help you curtail unnecessary comparisons and some tips on how to derive as much value from a presentation as possible. Use as intended. To start, I think it's important to identify that the presenter isn't inviting your comparisons. They're not looking to throw the gauntlet and challenge attendees to measure their personal or organizational success against theirs. There's no Gartner Magic Quadrant made available post-presentation that compares you to the presenter or other attendees. Presentations are meant to excite you about a project, product, or idea, so use it as intended. Priorities. Even in conferences like EDUCAUSE, where we share the commonality of education, and even more specifically higher education, we still can find that we have very different priorities. Ivy League schools look to push the envelope with top talent drawn from around the country and even the world. Research schools look to solve some of the most challenging problems that face humanity. California State University Channel Islands, the university where I work, focuses its efforts on the Ventura County region in Southern California and targets first-generation college students and individuals who may not have a traditional pathway to higher education. All of these have value and are a necessary part of the educational ecosystem. But these varied goals will directly translate to different priorities. This means I shouldn't feel diminished when a technology school presents an outstanding breakthrough on quantum computers. That is valuable. So is helping students change the trajectory of their life through higher education. What you have. Sometimes with different priorities comes a varied level of resources. Resource envy can be a big stumbling block for many of us. Colleagues from some of our more prestigious schools are doing incredible cutting-edge work, leading projects utilizing resources far beyond those that you could possibly hope to have at your disposal. And while it's understandable to be impressed and maybe a twinge jealous of their opportunity, it's important to remember that our excellence is not tied to our resources. This was certainly the case for Richard Appiah Akoto, a teacher in Ghana who taught computers and word processing to his students using nothing but a chalkboard. Akoto would painstakingly draw computer interfaces each time the lesson required it. He did this because he felt the subject was important for his students' success and overcame a seemingly insurmountable technology gap to do so. Akoto was heralded as an incredible teacher and consequently received a number of technology resources to use in his classroom. While we're blessed with a significant technological advantage at our institutions, we do have correspondingly greater demands placed on us. We also can strive to do our best with the resources that we are afforded. As Theodore Roosevelt said, "Do what you can with what you have, where you are." Where you are. In a 1997 interview, Michael Dell of Dell Computers famously said in regards to the then struggling Apple computers, "I'd shut it down and give the money back to the shareholders," suggesting that Apple should shutter their doors and just give up. What followed was a historic turning of the tables. Apple soared to become a trillion-dollar juggernaut, while Dell floundered. I tell you this not to fuel a desire to crush your academic counterparts, but rather to identify the cyclic ebbs and flows that happen as part of life. Universities, departments, and individuals all may be at different points. So while one may be facing trials and tribulations, another may be experiencing a renaissance. It may become clear during a presentation that you, your department, or your school is in a very different place than that of the presenter, and that's okay. Remember, do what you can with what you have, where you are. So, we've talked a little bit about ways we may unfairly compare ourselves. But with all of these potential pitfalls in the way we perceive presentations, wouldn't it be just easier to skip them altogether? Should we write them off as an emotional quagmire better to be avoided? Though this may sound like a sensible conclusion, I think it would be a missed opportunity. The lessons gained hold far too much value to simply be cast aside. And although you may not be in the same place as the presenter, there is almost always some truth or improvement to take away if you're looking for them. So let's talk about ways to extract more value from these presentations. Make it your own. When you're faced with presentations from those with vastly different priorities, funding, or experience, it would be easy to write them off as too different from your situation to be applicable. However, there are undoubtedly some transferable, universally valuable lessons to be learned. You may just need to distill them yourself. Maybe an expensive software being shown is outside your budget, but the ideas and principles behind it may still be valuable. Maybe the scope and scale of a presenter's campaign is too grand, but could a more modest implementation be beneficial? While most presenters hope to provide some level of practical application, it takes the participation of the attendees to apply the knowledge to their own situation. Have a growth mindset. Perhaps you share the same thinking as the great existentialist philosopher, Popeye the Sailor Man. After spending a significant amount of time in the same role or place, it can be especially easy to think your skills are fixed and unchangeable. You're stuck the way you are, where you are. This is called a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that all skills and abilities are trainable and can be improved upon. According to author Carol Dweck, your mindset plays an important role in your success and how you cope with challenges, something unlikely to be achieved by eating a can of spinach. Those with a growth mindset are better able to take criticism and handle challenges than those with a fixed mindset, who are typically more likely to give up. This means that our attitude towards ourselves and others is important, impacting our hunger for learning, how we perceive problems, and the effort we choose to invest in their solutions. Approaching conference sessions with a growth mindset allows for you to view other stories through a lens of discovery and enrichment, excited to learn from others' experiences and ferret out the wisdom and ideas that can apply to your own unique situation. Stay curious. Author James Clear frames the relationship between curiosity, opportunity, and success, saying, "There are nearly endless opportunities to improve each day, and finding them largely boils down to being curious. People who are better in the end are usually curious in the beginning." What does curiosity and the Illuminati Society have to do with each other? Well, in 2014, researchers from the University of California, Davis conducted a neurological study that showed curiosity makes our brains more receptive for learning, and that as we learn, we enjoy the sensation of learning. Curiosity, then, both prepares the brain for learning and makes learning a rewarding experience while also helping our brain retain the information. So having your curiosity sparked means your learning is more fun and effective. So what does the Illuminati have to do with curiosity? Nothing. I was just trying to get you interested.
Or was I?
To summarize these, I'm going to take a geeky tangent here, but I think we can draw from it, so stick with me. In the Harry Potter book series, a legendary artifact is part of the story arc that has a unique property, the Sword of Godric Gryffindor. While there's a lot to geek out about the sword, the part that I always find interesting is that this magic sword continuously becomes more and more magical. The book describes the sword as only imbibing that which makes it stronger. This unique characteristic means that while it can resist the ravages of time and rust, it takes on new properties that make it more potent and more powerful. My hope when experiencing these presentations is that we also take in only those aspects that are motivating and inspiring and use them to fuel our continued growth, simultaneously casting off the negativity that comes from comparison. Remember to stay curious, have a growth mindset, and make it your own. To close, I want to key in on presenters. And while I can't cover this in as much detail as I originally would have hoped, I'm going to do what I can. Presenters. I'm not going to give you tips on how to be more dynamic or make a better PowerPoint. I'm not an expert in these areas, and many of you have far more experience than myself. We've talked about the obstacle of comparison for attendees and how that can negatively affect their ability to derive value. And we've called out incorrect comparisons and provided tips on how to consume these presentations. But this all begs the question, is there something that we as presenters can do differently? Are there ways we can convey our message that will not trigger comparisons in others? I do not by any means have all the answers on this one. My desire is to increase awareness and let all of your brilliant minds think of possible solutions. But I do have a few thoughts that may help point us in the right direction. First, remember why you're presenting. Most likely, it's a combination of sharing something you're genuinely excited about and wanting to help others who may be facing a similar challenge or obstacle that you were. Focus on trying to transfer that excitement to others. Second, be aware of your circumstances and understand that others may not be in a situation that affords them the same opportunity as you. You don't need to be apologetic, just aware so that you can communicate more effectively. Lastly, allow yourself to be human. Authenticity, relatability, and vulnerability are really important for making a meaningful connection with others. Talking about both your incredible achievements as well as your mistakes along the way. Sharing your strengths and your weaknesses. These will make your message resonate and possibly even encourage other presenters to feel comfortable to follow suit. I hope we can all enjoy FOMO-free conferencing. and that someday soon, we can be tearing up the conference floor together in person, networking, learning, and avoiding the vegetarian lobster bisque. Until then, I hope our paths virtually cross. Feel free to reach out and connect with me. Thank you, and happy conferencing.